Welcome, Danielle. I'm so excited to have you here as our guest on the Success with Soul podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited for our conversation.
Wonderful. So, why don't we start off by you just telling us a little bit about yourself and your business and your entrepreneurial journey?
Absolutely. So, I actually started my very first business when I was still in university. And so, I've always known that I wanted to run my own business, own my own business. I saw entrepreneurs in my family. So, I think it really kind of runs in our family. And I never really knew what I wanted to do, though. I knew that I loved people and I knew that I loved communicating and networking and being with other people and creating community, but I didn't really know like what would that look like in the future. And so I did a lot of things. I tried a lot of things. And then in 2015, I had this kind of idea. And at first, honestly, it was not a business idea. This was just like an idea that I had because I was personally feeling lonely in my entrepreneurial journey. And so I thought, there must be other people who feel like this, who want to connect with other like-minded people on their journey so that they can connect and collaborate and network. And so I started hosting these little pop-up events in our local city. I live in Vancouver, Canada. So at the time, there was nothing really like that. There were very structured, organized networking events, but I felt like they were very corporate-y. So I wanted them to be fun and something that people would be excited to come to. And so it started there. And then over the next 5 or so years, we built that community. We started multiple different chapters across North America. And the business is called Business Babes Collective. So we did that. And then, of course, in 2020, we had to really reimagine, what does this business look like? How are we going to still serve our community, build that? And so that really forced us to figure out, okay, what's the long-term goal of what we want to do here? So we ended up really figuring out our online presence and our online community and building community online. And now that we're able to do in-person events again, it really feeds into each other. So what I'm really passionate about is, teaching mostly women how to create collaborations and how to create, partnerships that can be beneficial for both parties and can help each other grow. So I'm really big into community, really big into collaborations. And so that's what we do.
That's amazing. Tell me a little bit more about your pop-up events where you mentioned what was originally in the space felt very corporate to you and you wanted to make yours fun. So what does that look like?
Yeah. So, and I think too, like it was one of these things where at the time I felt like I would walk in the room and I would immediately feel like it didn't belong there. I don't know if anyone else has felt this way before, but you walk into a room and you're like, oh my goodness, because all of these business owners were so far ahead of me in their business, like they had been in business 10 years, 20 years, even more. And I was just starting and I felt like, okay, I need to almost like pretend that I'm further along than I am because I would feel like awkward talking to these people like, oh yeah, I've been in business 15 years and we have this big team. And I'm like, okay, like I'm just getting started. And so I wanted a place where no matter where people were at, whether they were, far along into business or whether they were just getting started, they were really open and honest with how their entrepreneurial journey has been and sharing and really being like authentic. And so that's kind of what I wanted to create. And so the idea was, okay, let's get together, let's have food, let's have drinks, let's have a panel discussion, let's have time for networking. And so really kind of like bringing in all these fun pieces. We would have photo booths at our events. And, it really developed over time. Of course, it started really small. I think our first event was like maybe 10 people. And then it really kind of grew over time. And so bringing in these kind of elements of these fun elements so that people could kind of take their guard down and really feel like excited to be there in the room and feel welcomed and communicate with each other in an authentic way. So really trying to create that within the event space. And yeah, I quickly realized that that was something that was really needed, especially in our city. So
I love that. One of
yeah.
the things that I saw in your website was your philosophy about really having an abundance mindset versus a scarcity mindset, and
Mm-hmm.
why we should look for ways to collaborate with your quote unquote competition. Um,
Yes.
I'd love to hear your thoughts and more about that, because I think that as women, it's so important for us to, you know, we rise by lifting others. And so I really
Mm-hmm.
loved this mindset that you're coming from.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's one of these things, and I don't know whether like where we really get this from, but it's this idea that we are worried that if we collaborate or if we work with or if we share resources with someone who we maybe see as competition, that there won't be enough for us. And so we live in this mindset of, oh, I can't share that, or I can't I don't want to share that resource that I have, or I don't want to communicate with this other business or this business owner that is my direct competition. And what that creates is it creates this fear, and it creates this like us holding back. And it also creates this idea that we actually don't want to show up. Like we end up not actually showing up as powerfully as we could, because we think, well, if we show up that way, if we share what we've learned or the knowledge that we have, someone's going to steal that and they're going to take it and they're going to, copy us, whatever that looks like. And, of course that happens. It happens everywhere. It happens, in every industry. But the thing is that no one can replicate you as a person, right? We all have our own unique gifts. We all have our own unique abilities and talents and connections and all of that. And so I think it's important to recognize that the world is abundant. There is more than enough for everyone. There's more than enough business for everyone. And if we can come together and actually support one another, we can all grow together faster. And I think there's something so beautiful about doing business in community. And, I know I've experienced this, and I know a lot of people in our community have experienced this too, when they actually have conversations and talk to people who could be seen as their competition. They actually like create really incredible friendships and connections and relationships. And the amazing thing is that a lot of times they're like referring to each other. So maybe they have a full workload at that moment, and so they can refer to someone else. Or maybe they're doing an event and they're like, oh, you know what? This person's perspective would be really helpful. I want to bring this person on board, with this event, or whatever that looks like. And it's just, I think that we limit our own growth when we look at other people, when we look at everyone else as our competition instead of someone we could have a relationship with and potentially collaborate and work with. So I think that, and it's cool because I've seen this happen again and again, where people will even like partner up, like different businesses that are actually competitors. They'll partner up and do something together. And it's so refreshing to see that. And I think it serves both businesses really, really well too. So that's kind of my philosophy on it. I think that we need to, whatever, like if it's ingrained in us, we have to actually work to push through that fear, and we have to work to actually overcome that. And I will say that, of course, building that relationship and building that trust over time is important too, right? Not just getting into business with everyone and anyone. Build that relationship, build that trust, know that you share values. And then I think then at that point, you can be like, okay, let's work together. Let's do something together. Let's make this happen.
So some of the key takeaways of like what you just said for me was definitely like reframing, rather than competition, let's collaborate.
Mhm.
And also something that you just said really stuck out to me, and that was the idea of values. That is huge here.
Mhm.
At Team KK, Success with Soul, we have our values front and center. And I think it's so important. I see many people that they are not first going to someone's website and checking out, okay, what are their guiding principles? What is their why? And how does that align with me? So I
Mhm.
absolutely love that you made a point to redirect that values are key, and that really should be a guiding force as to who you are deciding to collaborate with.
Yeah, yeah. And I think too, like just because and I'm an advocate for collaborations, I feel like that's how people know me, but I don't believe that you need to collaborate with everyone and anyone. I know that, you know, and I think too, a reason why people feel a little bit hesitant sometimes to collaborate or to work with another business is because they've potentially been burned in the past. And so I always encourage people to look at that situation, reflect on that experience, and think to yourself, okay, what about that experience did not go well? Was there some red flags that I saw that I chose to ignore, right? Was the communication, maybe the communication wasn't there, where you felt maybe that you were being taken advantage of, or that you were giving more than you were receiving, whatever that looked like, but you didn't maybe step up and communicate that, or share those thoughts. And so there's lots of things that can kind of break down when it comes to collaborating and working with other people. I mean, we're human, right? Like it's not going to look perfect every time, but really reflecting on that and figuring out, okay, where did that go wrong? Because if you want to grow your business, especially if you're looking like you have your established business and now you're looking to grow to that next level, collaborations are going to be really, really key. Like working with other people, with other business owners, or other obviously like having people join your team, that's a collaboration as well, right? Working with other people that way. And so practicing that is really, really important. Just saying, well, you know what, I've been burned in the past, so I'm not going to work with anyone else, then really you're closing yourself off from so many opportunities. And I think I see that a lot, and it makes me really sad, because not only are you blocking some of those amazing things that could happen from those conversations and those collaborations, but also it's really lonely. Like entrepreneurship can be really lonely. And if you're doing it on your own, especially if you work from home, or, maybe you have a co-working space that you go to, but it can still just feel very isolating. And so I just think that, if we can figure out, okay, how do we do collaborations in a way that is in line with our values, like you mentioned, so, so important, with people that we have built some level of trust with, and then having really, really good collaboration throughout that, communication throughout that whole collaboration, whatever that looks like, whether it be, hosting an event with someone, or, cross promotion, and then that is when the collaboration succeeds.
So that leads me to my next question, which is how can entrepreneurs like utilize strategic collaborations and partnerships to scale their exposure and revenue?
Yeah. Okay. Such a good question. So there's so many different ways to do this. And this could look as simple as doing a guest blog post on someone's website, right? It could look like podcasting. It could look like cross promoting someone's brand with yours. So if you have like aligned businesses or aligned brands, whether that be service-based or product-based that really align in value, what if you did like a promotion together? Or I've seen people do bundles together where they cross promote each other's programs or cross promote each other's products on each other's email lists or social media accounts. So that could be a collaboration. And then there's larger collaborations like hosting a virtual or in-person event. Of course, that's the world that we've done, hundreds and hundreds of collaborations over the past 8 years, and started with in-person events, doing hundreds of collaborations with businesses for that. And then also, of course, with COVID, we started to do events online, and we started to collaborate with businesses online for virtual. So there's so many different ways. And really it's figuring out, okay, who are the communities, who are the businesses who have aligned audiences, who have similar values, like you said, as well. And how can we come together? How can we support one another? And the biggest part that I always really try to encourage is, how can you make it a win-win for both parties? Like, where is their value on each side, and what does that look like? So, some people come to me and they're like, oh, but, I don't have an audience, and so I don't think I have anything of value to offer. Well, you probably have experience, you probably have connections, you might have a service that you can offer someone. Like, there's so much value that you have that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with your audience. So don't limit yourself just because you think, well, I don't have enough followers, or I don't have enough email subscribers, whatever that is. I see people holding themselves back for pitching themselves or creating those collaborations. And when I started my community and I was wanting to host my first event, I had 0 connections. Like, we all start with 0, right? Like, I had 0 connections. I had 0 social media following, nothing. And what I would do is I would connect with people, and I would find people online that inspired me. And I would ask them, like, hey, and I would specifically say, what about them really inspires me? And I would say, hey, can I treat you for a coffee, or can I take you for lunch, or can I hop on a quick call and I'm going to send you a gift card? Like, I would love to just learn a little bit more about you and what you do. I have this vision of what I want to create in our local city, and I'd love for you to be a part of it. And I would love to see if it's a good fit. And so I was just, and, I got no's, I got no responses, but there were those 2 people who reached back out and they said, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Yes, I'd love to connect with you. And that's where it started, really. And so it was just one person to one person. And a lot of those relationships that I started over 8 years ago, I'm still connected with today, and we still connect and support each other. So, everyone starts with 0. It's my encouragement.
I absolutely love that you say that, because having been in this space, I was an entrepreneur, and coming here to Team KK once again became an intrapreneur. There's always that, I don't have the following, I don't have the email list, I don't have the social media followers that a lot of people think that they need to have. And there's something that you said, which was like, I got no responses. Some people didn't even respond. So how do you reframe rejection and failure, right, in your journey as an entrepreneur? And what has been your biggest failure so far in your business?
Oh, such a great question. Okay, so, I think failure is such a funny thing, because we put so much weight on it, and rejection too. We put so much weight on one person's response or lack of response, right? And I think we just need to recognize and realize, and this is something I always talk to my clients about and our mastermind members, like, we are, when we're reaching out to someone, it's very important to us. We have chosen to reach out to this person. But what I always teach is doing research about this person, making sure that it is a good fit. If they have a blog, you're reading that blog, like you said, you're looking at their website, you're listening to their podcast if they have one, all of those things. Like, actually do your research to make sure it would be a good fit. And so you're doing all of that time and effort to reach out to them, right? So it's really important to you. But you have to understand that coming into their inbox as someone who they might have zero idea who you are, they have no previous connection to you. So you're coming in as a cold email potentially. And I also teach, like, if they have social media, like, connect with them there and follow them. And, but you might be coming in as a completely cold email. And so for them, the priority of them responding to you is at the bottom of their list, right? And that doesn't mean that they hate you. That doesn't mean that they're not interested in being a part of what you're potentially proposing, right? And it also could be that maybe it's just not a good time for them, right? Like, there's been so many times where, and we do a lot of pitching. So there's been a lot of times where people have responded and they've said things like, hey, I'm so sorry. It took me, weeks or maybe even months to respond. I had my baby. And it's like, oh, well, of course you're not going to respond. Like, I didn't even know you were pregnant. So, life is full for everyone. And so it's not taking those non-responses or those no's personally, because it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with your business. It's just the fact that it's not a good fit for them at that moment, or it's not a good time for them at that moment. And that's okay. So I think it's just reframing that in your own mind to recognize that, if you send an email out, like, let's say you want to do an event and you're wanting to get collaborators for your event, whether that be speakers, or maybe it is you're wanting to host it at a venue and you want to pitch venues to host your event. Think that if you're going to pitch probably around 10 people, you're maybe going to get like 1 or 2 responses. Again, it depends on the level of relationship that you may or may not already have with that. But if it's coming from a cold place, then it might be about 1 out of every 10. And so if you have that expectation in your mind, then you won't be as disappointed when you either get a no or don't get a response at all. So that's what I'll have to say about that.
And what has been your biggest failure so far in business?
So good. So many failures. Oh man. Okay, so I will share this one moment that I felt like a huge failure. So I think we were in about year 3 of the business. And I remember we were hosting this event, and for whatever reason, this particular event was very difficult for me to plan. And I think it was because I had been running on adrenaline for the previous 3 years and really, like, in this hustle mode, really is how I would describe it. And so I was tired and we were hosting this event. I remember it was the morning of the event, and I woke up and I felt like I couldn't get out of bed. Like, I was like, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to go to bed right now. I knew that the attendance at the event wasn't what I had expected or planned or wanted. And I was feeling like a huge failure. I was feeling like, I've been doing this for 3 years. You'd think by now I would have, this community of people who just, no matter what, would buy tickets for my event. And I think at that moment, I really had to reframe how I was looking at things. I had to reframe it in, who am I doing this for? Am I doing this for my community, or am I doing this for myself? Right. And that was like a huge just mindset shift. And also, I had been running things on my own for 3 years without any help on my team. I had people come in, as contractors or different things, but I didn't have anyone consistent supporting me. And so that was a huge turning point for me. I'm like, you know what? I need, like, something needs to change. I've been hustling for 3 years doing all these events. I would host 1 event per month, sometimes 2 in our local city. And it was just like event after event after event. And I didn't really have that time where I would reflect and think, how did that event go? What could be changed next time? who am I serving? Who's my ideal client? Who's my ideal person who's coming to these events? How can I make it a better experience for them? Those questions that as business owners, we should be asking ourselves. And because I was running so quickly, I wasn't doing that. And I was completely burnt out at that moment. And so after that event, I was like, okay. And it was really cool because, man, like I had a couple people come up to me after that event and say, hey, thank you so much for hosting this event. Like this was so, I needed this. And I was like, okay, like this is why I'm doing this. I'm doing it for that person. And I need to figure out, what does she want? Right? What is she looking for? Because I just need to find more people like her who need this community. And so from there, I ended up actually that summer, I ended up hiring 2 people on the team and really started to create some systems and get organized. Because, man, when I started my business, I was the most disorganized person. I had pieces of paper everywhere, sticky notes. I don't know if anyone can relate to this. Like, all my receipts are in these random drawers and shoe boxes everywhere. So I was like, hey, I need to get organized. I need to create some systems and I need to hire on my team because I'm running from this place of chaos. And so that was what was showing up in my business, was chaos. And so that was a huge turning point for me, I think.
I love that. I love that. And I'm curious, do you do market research? Do you send surveys after your events?
Yeah, so that's something that we do now. And I think one of the most impactful ways that we end up doing that is I will get on calls with people. So, a lot of the times after an event, and what I'll do is I'll try to kind of like pick specific people that I know are kind of our ideal like attendees who maybe I've connected with or maybe had a conversation with. And I'll say like, hey, can we hop on a phone call? I would love to hear your feedback. What did you like about the event? What do you feel like could be improved? Like, what would make this event, if say your experience at the event was a 9, like what would make it a 10? Like what would make it just that much better? And we also do recaps for our team as well. And I always ask our team like, hey, ask the vendors, ask the sponsors, ask the people there, like, ask them questions while you're there. Like, how is their experience? Like, do you need anything? All of those things. And then we can kind of write down, okay, what's missing? What can we do better next time? And so it's always a learning experience. You'd think, 8 years into running events, we'd have it like perfect, but it's always, we can always grow and do better is I think the mindset that I try to have.
Absolutely. I love that. I was just telling my son today, you always can learn from something, from
Yes.
someone. Like the opportunity to learn is endless, right? There's always something that we can learn. So, I guess I'd love for you to tell our audience, like, I know that you're all about building a thriving community around your brand and really, you know, fostering authentic relationships in doing so.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say has been like the best thing that you have done up to this point where you could say like, that's something that I definitely want to pass down to everyone that I work with?
So good. I think for me, it's a couple things. Okay, so number one, I would say is understand and recognize that challenges will always make you better. And without challenges, without failures, you won't grow. And if you're trying to keep yourself safe, if you're trying to, which we do in business, right? We try to keep ourselves safe. We try to keep ourselves in our comfort zone, but that's never going to foster growth. And so if we do want growth, we have to just be honest with ourselves. Like, do I want growth more than I am afraid of it? Do I want it more than I, am I willing to fail? Am I willing to make mistakes? Am I willing to maybe be embarrassed or rejected or whatever that is, and experience growth? Because as we grow, we're going to experience different types of challenges as well. And so it's really working through that. And, your mindset is so, so important. It is one of the biggest things that I've realized in business. It can make or break an experience for you 100%. If your mindset towards something is, oh, like I have to do this, and you're dragging your feet, and you just have this kind of, you feel resistance towards it, you're not going to do your best. And it's not going to have the result that you want it to have. Whereas if you think, wow, I can't believe I get to do this, I'm so excited, I can't wait to follow up with those people, I can't wait to, do this service for my client, whatever that might be, whatever it is that you're working on, be excited about it, and switch your mindset to, I get to do this instead of I have to do this. And it will honestly make such a huge difference for you. And then the second thing, of course, is look for ways to collaborate and also support other people. Like, how can you reach out and support other people within your industry and build those relationships? Because referrals and networking is always, especially as you grow as well, are so important, and they're so incredibly valuable. Because when you're in a sticky situation, or if you need that support, if you've built that network around you, you can always reach out and ask for help. Whereas, you can't really reach out to people if they don't really know who you are and you haven't really built that relationship. So build yourself a support network, get in community, whatever that looks like, whether it be joining a program that, really aligns with you, or a mastermind group, or whatever that is. Be around other people who are dreaming big, who are doing scary things, and who actually want to see you succeed. Like, genuinely, they want to see you succeed, and that will make all the difference.
I absolutely love that. And everything you just said describes like our community inside the incubator, where, these are women entrepreneurs. And one of the things that we can consistently feedback that we get from them is, we love the community. We love that there are other women who are going through the same things, and they are genuinely wanting you to succeed and to support you. So I love all of that.
Yeah.
So Danielle, this is a Success with Soul podcast, and we have something here called the lightning round. And
okay.
I'm just going to ask you some questions. Don't overthink it.
Okay, sounds good.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. The first one is, what's your favorite way to make time for self-care while running your own business?
Oh, so good. I have recently started to get up early before my daughter. And that has been really game changing for me, just to have some time before she wakes up to be calm and think about my day and do some prayer. And it's just, for me, it really I feel like sets my day up for success. It doesn't happen every morning. I'm not perfect, but when I do, it's game changing.
Love that. What is one tool or strategy that you use to help with time management?
Ooh, I actually like putting a timer on my phone when I'm doing tasks, so that if the timer goes off and I'm distracted on Facebook or Instagram, I'm like, oh yeah, I was doing this one task. So I like to set a timer for myself and then see if I can get back on task.
Okay. What's the most powerful business, mindset, or entrepreneurial book that you've read? This is the one that you reference again and again and has made the biggest difference in your life.
Oh, I think The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. It's basically this idea of every step that you take, all the small decisions that you make really lead to those big successes. So it's like the small little decisions that you're making every day that make a difference.
I love that. Have never heard of it. So I've made a note, because this is one of my favorite questions. I have like tons of books I've read
I
just off of
love
this
that.
question. So I know mindset is huge. You've mentioned it throughout the entire interview. So tell me, what's your favorite quote or mantra or affirmation that you use when things get tough and you feel like giving up?
Okay, this one is I actually it's from a woman in our mastermind group. She always says this, and I don't know whether she got it from someone else. So if we're quoting someone, like I'm not sure, but you can do anything that you want, just not all at once and not by yourself. And I say that to myself often.
I love that. You can do anything you want.
Just not all at once and not by yourself.
Yes, love that. And then finally, what does success with soul mean to you?
I love that. I think for me, it's not looking at other people's version of what success looks like for them, but really figuring out like what do you truly want in your business, but also in your life. There's so many pieces of our life that sometimes when we start a business, we forget to prioritize. And so I think it's prioritizing our life first and having our business support us with the lifestyle and the life that we want.
Love that. Danielle, it has been such a pleasure getting to know you, getting to know about your business. So let our listeners know where they can find you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation. So you can find me on our website at businessbabescollective.com. You can find us at our podcast, which is just Business Babes Collective. And you can find me on Instagram, my personal account. So if you want to see, behind the scenes of mom life and all that fun stuff, business life, it's Danny with an I, living life.
Love it. We'll make sure that we add all that to the show notes. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Success with Soul podcast. I can honestly say you have infinitely made this conversation just amazing for me, because we're in the process of really reevaluating what community is. So I loved hearing your thoughts, and I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Danielle.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Okay, great. Have a great day.
Thanks.